The clones themselves were some of the greatest heroes during the Clone Wars conflict, where many people in the galaxy grew to have a great admiration of the clone troopers that protected them. And when the Jedi Order seemingly betrayed the Republic and the Senate, it was the clone troopers that stayed loyal to their Chancellor Palpatine, destroying the Jedi without hesitation, and in the minds of the people, still being some of the greatest warriors the galaxy had ever seen. However, behind the scenes, we all know what truly happened with Emperor Palpatine's rise to power. The clone troopers had organic chips placed within their minds, chips that would force them to enact every order of Emperor Palpatine if they were ever called upon. And called upon they were indeed, with the events of Order 66, the event that wiped out nearly every single Jedi that served the Republic faithfully. But despite this being the end of the tale for the Jedi in the wider galaxy for the time, this was not the end of the story for the clone troopers. However, again, we know they would be ultimately phased out, and replaced by people that actually volunteered to join the stormtrooper ranks. Not to mention, of course, the name of the clone trooper would be altered to the stormtrooper, and the clones were known as shock troopers throughout the Empire, and sort of elite troopers, as almost immediately Emperor Palpatine had normal individuals join the ranks of the stormtrooper corps. Immediately after Emperor Palpatine took power, he halted the production of the clone army, seeing it as an unnecessary expense, as his only real enemy in the galaxy, being the Jedi, had been wiped out, and all of the droids were deactivated following the events of Order 66, and again Palpatine taking control, as behind the scenes Palpatine had been in control of both armies the entire time, one personally and the other through his apprentice Dooku. Palpatine still had a ton of clone troopers under his command though, as without constant warfare there were still a ton of clones that were not constantly being killed on the battlefield. Therefore Palpatine knew that he would not run out of clone troopers anytime soon. This act by Palpatine would actually worry the clone troopers a great deal, as this would mean there was only one generation left in the clone trooper line. This caused many of the older troopers to panic and try to engage in warfare anywhere they could, joining the ranks of the stormtroopers and trying to be as active as possible. This would also mean many of the clone troopers, elite clone troopers I may add, would attempt to join Emperor Palpatine's Red Royal Guard to ensure they could remain as a part of the Empire for as long as possible. It was discovered that around a decade after the events of Revenge of the Sith, there was still a clone trooper among the ranks of Emperor Palpatine's Red Royal Guard, and that many elite clone troopers had actually joined the Red Guard before their kind died out, proving again how truly elite and above the rest the clone troopers were. One of the main duties of the clone troopers following Order 66 were to patrol the upper levels of Coruscant, where a lot of the clone troopers were most active immediately following the war. Emperor Palpatine said it was to protect the civilians of the galaxy, while in secret it was actually to monitor for Jedi that would attempt to sneak back into the Jedi Temple following the events of Order 66, and the clone troopers here were on high alert for any threats. Many of the other clone troopers were sent to secure known Jedi sites throughout the galaxy, something that the clone troopers considered tedious, as oftentimes they would find no sign of any new Jedi in the area, as it would be an obvious choice for a Jedi to flee following the purge. However, in rare cases, the clone troopers would encounter unexperienced young Jedi at some of these locations, and would subsequently execute them. As time went on though, Emperor Palpatine officially deemed the clone troopers unfit for military service, retiring every single known clone trooper in the Stormtrooper Corps, and only taking individuals into the Stormtrooper Corps that had natural births, banning clone troopers from their ranks. About 4 years before the Battle of Yavin, it was exceptionally rare to find any clone trooper among the ranks of the Empire. However, there were still a few. However, they had predominantly died out or had been decommissioned by the Empire itself and given alternate jobs. A small group of clone troopers though had been given the job among the Empire to actually train the generation of stormtroopers, and they served as instructors for said stormtroopers, although they were all naturally born. One of these clone troopers was actually TX-828, who was among one of the last stormtroopers that was a clone among the ranks of the Empire, appearing to be about 40 years old due to his accelerating aging process. As to what exactly entailed retirement for a stormtrooper or a clone trooper, this is all that we know. Retirement was something that was frequently talked about during the latter years of the Clone Wars conflict, with a lot of the clones wondering what retirement would be like themselves. However, many of their commanding officers would shut down any of this talk. wanting them to focus solely on the war at hand. The clone troopers had directly been told by the Republic that they had plans to retire them after the war, and that they would not simply be cast aside like worthless creatures. However, admittedly, the Republic had no idea what this retirement actually meant, and had no concrete plan for the troopers. After the Clone Wars though, many of the troopers that actually chose to retire and not remain a part of the Empire were given sort of security jobs for the new Empire itself, or in some cases they were privately contracted by other individuals, with again the large majority of them going into security. It became most well known that a clone trooper's best role was to serve in a combat area and war, and that they lacked a bunch of other normal skills that would allow them to get a more normal job throughout the galaxy. Before the Clone Wars actually came to an end, many politicians approached some prominent clone troopers, offering them roles as politicians, as again the wide public had a great respect for these soldiers and war heroes. However, none of the clone troopers actually wanted to take on any sort of role as a politician, as they admittedly disdained the idea and were bred for more direct combat rather than simply talking about political matters. Following the events of Order 66, a lot of the clone troopers experienced a shift in mindset, with some of them experiencing great regret for what they did with their Jedi brethren, many of them describing the experience as hypnotizing, describing it as someone else at the wheel entirely pulling the triggers to their blasters pointed at the Jedi. In fact, there was a large portion of clone troopers that were utterly traumatized by the event. Other clone troopers had a strong allegiance to the Republic itself and Palpatine, and not the Jedi. However, it appeared to be split pretty evenly down the line how a clone trooper felt. Most of them shoved the event far back in their memory, choosing not to think about their actions during Order 66, while others dwelt on it until the day they died. There was actually a number of clone troopers though that discovered the organic chips in their brains before Order 66, and managed to remove them. Many of the clone troopers that actually decided to do this would actually join the ranks of the rebellion years later, or smaller rebellions that would pop up before the major one arose, with many of these clones considering the next wave of stormtroopers obsolete to their brethren that died during the Clone War. Captain Rex, who served under Anakin Skywalker, being quite possibly the most famous clone trooper that belonged to this group. Many of the clone troopers though that actually discovered this organic chip would not join the rebellion, considering themselves too old already and no longer desiring to seek out war. Many of these troopers would not oppose the reign of the Empire at all, falling into obscurity. Again, although the clone troopers were decommissioned though shortly after the rise of the Empire, it still inspired many natural birth people to join the ranks of the stormtroopers, with hopes of actually serving alongside some clones. As time went on though, many individuals would completely forget about the clone troopers entirely, as they were known as the Lost Generation, as the memory of the Jedi Knights also faded from the minds of the people. By the time of the original trilogy in Star Wars, the clone troopers had all but died out, many of them retiring or many of them being killed during the Clone Wars itself, as again many of them would have died out due to their accelerated aging. Again, the clone troopers that remained would serve as a role of training the stormtroopers, but they themselves were not involved in active combat. However, it is known that Captain Rex was in fact involved on the Battle of Endor, and was present during that battle, being one of the last surviving clone troopers in all of Star Wars. But that is what happened to the stormtroopers after the reign of the Empire, all in Star Wars canon, and unfortunately how and why many of them died out. But let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on the story of the clone troopers post Order 66 and following the rise of the Galactic Empire? How do you feel about their treatment under the Empire? And who is your all-time favorite clone trooper? Just as a reminder, in the link in the description down below, we have some absolutely awesome Star Wars merchandise, so if you like any of the designs, be sure to check it out using my link at the top of the description down below. As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you again so much for 1 million subscribers. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.